happiness. The pursuit of happiness that led to depression. How it made us the unhappiest we've ever been. Happiness has taken a shift from being a desirable state that would arise occasionally to some, to being seen as a human right with a multi-billion-dollar industry backing it up. An industry providing people with self-help books, online coaching, and etc. All these how-to guides to reach this end goal, and only resulting in the opposite. How and why did we get here? This project aims to take a look at the different factors leading to this, focusing mainly on the role of social comparison and the shift between individual happiness to shared happiness. Happiness has been defined by the online dictionary of Merriam-Webster as a state of well-being and contentment. Yet this isn't really reflected in the statistics. Statistics show that nowadays we're 10 times as likely to be depressed than we were 50 years ago. And at the end of the day, although everybody knows that they're striving for happiness, people can't really focus on what it is that they want when they want happiness. It's almost as though we've moved away from the purity of main happiness. Looking at trends from about 100 years ago, what people desired in order to make them happy was completely different than today. Back in the day, it was common that having a good family or being able to make a good means for yourself would lead to true happiness. Whereas nowadays, it's not so simple. With the rise of social media comparing every move we take to someone else, it's almost as if everything we do isn't quite good enough because there's always someone better or someone that's portraying themselves to be better. It's almost as if these comparisons are making it impossible to reach someplace happy. As Aristotle says, classically, happiness has been considered an end rather than a means. Happiness is a chief good, that which all good things aim at. Happiness is what we choose for its own sake. So as Aristotle describes, happiness is a choice, something that you decide. But how do we know what to decide when there are 100 different things labeled as happiness? Sarah Ahmed goes on to say, in her book, Feminism and the History of Happiness, unfortunately, the notion of happiness is so indeterminate that although every human being wishes to attain it, yet he can never fully say inconsistently what it is that he really wishes and wills. Happiness is what we wish for. If happiness is necessarily our wish, it does not know what we wish for in wishing for happiness. It's almost as though happiness has become a goal without anybody really knowing what it truly means. It's desired because everybody else desires it. E.L. McCollum goes on to say that happiness involves a specific kind of intentionality, which he would call end-oriented. Happiness is described as what we aim for, an endpoint. So how do we acquire it? Although it's impossible to be happy without a minimum amount of cash, happiness is not solely determined on money. Kelsey and O'Brien go on to say that happiness is something that is making us less and less happy. Statistics show that although society is increasingly wealthy, we're less and less happy, and slowly we're becoming a Prozac nation. Media and advertisers suggest that happiness is dependent on external factors such as wealth, body shape, and designer clothes, whereas in reality, happiness is an internal state of being. And instead of rushing through it and trying to catch it, we need to let ourselves be caught by it. Happiness is such a universal desire that it's important to focus and just move the shift from the organizational state of happiness. Instead of focusing on the American dream that's supposedly gonna make you happy, the ideal would be to remove that social comparison, because that's essentially what went wrong. The main things that have changed over the past few decades have been the rise of internet, the rise of social media, and these are the factors that have been negatively affecting people's moods. Statistics show that Facebook users are twice as likely to develop depression than non-Facebook users. The main use of Facebook is to keep track of other people. It's to see what other people are doing.
Created using Powtoon.